This is UMBC Careers Unleashed, where we unleash stories, insights, and expertise to support you on your career journey. Let's dive in.
Welcome back, Retrievers. We're here with another episode of UMBC Careers Unleashed. Today, we're going to be unleashing career pathways. We have some great guests here with us today, and we're going to talk about a little bit about their internship experiences and other experiences that they've used to elevate their professional experience, if professional, quote unquote, their professional experience while here at UMBC and elsewhere. So with that, I want to introduce our lovely guests. I'll let you all introduce yourselves. Why don't you tell the folks your name and your major and then your classification?
Yes, so hi, my name's Kayla. I'm majoring in graphic design and a minor in print media, and I would say I'm a super senior, so in my 5th year as a senior.
And how about you?
All right. Hi, my name is Anil Shaji. I'm a political science major, and I am a senior here at UMBC.
All right. So we have a little segment here on the podcast, on the pod. We like to open up each one with a career controversy. Since it's two of y'all, I think we'll do 2 career controversies. I'll give you one, Kayla, and then I'll give you one, and we can, share your thoughts on it. Okay. So career controversy number 1, Kayla. Okay. Internships are really hard to get, and they only go to top students. What you think about that?
So I would only really agree with the first half of them being hard to get.
Okay.
From my own personal experience, whenever it came to job hunting and searching for them, I would have to hop between like Handshake, LinkedIn, and maybe like other third-party job site. And I think it was like last year, I had to start in September, in September to get summer internships. Because last year when I did that and I started in like February, I applied to like almost 80. And I was very fortunate to get the on-campus position I had last year. So yeah, I would say for the first statement, yes, it is very hard now with all of the talent that comes out of universities, with how many people go to them, internships, entry levels that kind of also require you to have almost professional level experience with years. So yeah, I would say first half, yeah, it's hard. For the second half being only for top students, I would disagree with that.
Okay.
Only because it's the people who technically get the internships are the ones who are applying to all of them. I think there's some very, especially in my career field as graphic design, very talented students who maybe haven't gotten an internship, but I don't think that means that they're not top students. I think that phrasing of, oh, that means they're better at the top, I think that's completely irrelevant, because you don't have to, you don't have to be a top student to get these internships, and your worth shouldn't be kind of equated to the amount of internships you get. It should be the talent that you have, and ultimately once you actually just get a full-time position, I think that's what matters the most.
You know what? And while I was listening to you, it made me think of something like that being a creative major or having a creative major here at like UMBC, where we sometimes think of our school being technology heavy and their like, student population. Do you feel like that may have presented a challenge for you, being more of a creative major, like, having the support for that?
Yeah, because even with our internship fairs, a lot of them were STEM heavy.
Yeah.
It was very hard to find ones that catered to my, even graphic design. When I would say to them, oh yeah, I'm looking for graphic design, I'd have to put on my STEM hat and be like, public affairs and communications, because sometimes maybe even those recruiters don't even know what graphic design is, even though it's a professional career. And yeah, I would just say, yeah, it was a bit hard, especially at a STEM research school, to find that. However, yeah, you kind of have to go on the job sites and look and sort of expand your sort of title to those public affairs communications, because they also cover graphic design. They just don't say it explicitly.
That's a great tip for, folks with creative majors out there.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to learn a little bit more about your unorthodox approach to things a little later. Okay, I got another question for you, Anil. So, in your opinion, well, this is the controversy. Interns usually do beginner work and or grunt work. What do you think about that?
So I would have to disagree. I think like when it comes to internships, employers are looking for people who want to experience new things, and they want you to also bring value to them as well.
Okay.
And so if you're only getting coffee for people and doing like basic paperwork and administrative stuff, it might not necessarily achieve those things.
Okay.
And so I think majority of the times they want you to experience, really implement yourself into the work environment,
Okay.
try more advanced things, learn some technical skills maybe,
Okay.
and really like apply yourself to get a full experience out of the internship. So I would disagree.
Okay.
There might be some roles here and there depending on the employer where you might be doing those type of things, but I think typically and for the most part, you're going to be doing some more like advanced tasks and like actually being a part of the organization.
Now, you come across, in my experience of you today, as a really sharp individual, sharp guy.
Thank you.
Let's say you found yourself in an internship where the person who was like your supervisor or the person who was leading the internship program, and they were kind of not allowing you to get the experiences that you want, that you thought that you would have while you were there. How would you advocate for yourself? Like, what would you do?
So one thing is you can talk to your supervisor directly and give feedback. I think feedback and communication is such an important thing about what you expected out of the experience. And I think initially when you come into an internship program, you actually go through that, right? Like what's expected out of you for your duration of your internship. And so you can always communicate with them and see what feedback they have for you. And you can even allow yourself to shadow other people within your work environment.
Oh, yeah.
And kind of push yourself and network with others to gain experience. So even though your role might be restricted to certain things, that doesn't mean it should stop you from looking elsewhere, you know what I mean? And looking for other opportunities within that organization. So I would talk with your supervisor, see what they have to say to you, but also push yourself where you can and then try to extract that information and opportunity from elsewhere.
That's a gem. I love that. So I want to know a little bit more. You both were actually just featured in the UMBC magazine, talking about like your internship experiences, your most recent internship experiences, and you were featured because your internships were kind of unconventional based on what or at least in unconventional workplaces or companies, organizations based on what your majors are. So Kayla, could you tell me a little bit about, okay, you're a graphic design major, but like where your internship was and how you got it?
Yeah. So for my internship this summer, it was at Johns Hopkins APL. And with that, I was in their communications department as a graphic design intern. And when it came to applying for that, I saw it was, I think, on LinkedIn. It was on LinkedIn. I saw the advertisement for it. And I saw this at communications. And I don't know, in my head, I had this bias that communication was only like editorial stuff. So I was thinking, okay, maybe I'll just help with the publications and it might be, I don't know. So, but when I applied for it, I looked in the description and it said Adobe. So that made me a little bit more comfortable with applying for it. And in my head, I never really expected me going for like a academic government type of career path. I mean, with my personal passions, I like, environmental stuff. I was applying for a lot of maybe countywide or I think like EPA, stuff like that.
Okay.
So Johns Hopkins wasn't necessarily in my head of like, I want to apply for this place.
Right.
But when I, went through the interviews and was learning more about what they offer, it sounded like really good. So I was really happy when I got the offer letter to hop on that experience. Yeah.
So you found your internship on LinkedIn. Now, you said this a couple of times since we've been talking about like thinking outside of the words graphic design and expanding it to communications. Is this something that you kind of taught yourself or you learned yourself, or was this something that your major in your department kind of helped you to understand, or is this something that you kind of came to on your own?
I think it was like a mix of both. I think because of like the classes that we take and the professors that I talked to, and same with my previous internship, it was mainly graphic design was the main title. I didn't think that I've heard of public affairs also being used, but it almost feels like public affairs mixes with social media, which is something I don't personally like. So something that's strictly print and digital productions, I would consider that to be solely graphic design. I didn't think of that in the communication side of things for like businesses as well.
But did your major department help you to understand that communications could include graphic design, or did you kind of come to that on your own? That's what I was wondering. Like, did they prepare you to say, okay, you could work in, like a communications role?
I don't know. I think it's a bit iffy to define it, because I think it was because of like I normally was applying for jobs during class, not during classes, but during the semester. So I would just kind of shotgun blast everything and see what I could get. I don't know if necessarily my professor said communications. I know for sure like publications and certain in-house publications for stuff, but I don't think I heard the word, I think communications directly.
Well, I think that that's definitely a gem for like folks who are in creative majors to even think of, like, okay, if my area is a subset of a larger industry, how maybe the job title doesn't say graphic design, but that there are graphic design elements in communications work. What about you? Where did you get the opportunity to intern, and how did you find your internship?
Yeah, so I worked as a summer analyst at Morgan Stanley, specifically operations and within their institutional securities group. And so how I found this opportunity was, I believe I was scrolling on my UMBC actually. It might have been Handshake or my UMBC, I don't remember which one, but basically I saw a notification that said that UMBC was taking a trip to Morgan Stanley. And so it was like on a Friday, and I didn't have class on Friday, and typically I don't participate in those type of things, right? I like to do my schoolwork and chill at home and do what I got to do. But I was like, you know what, why not take the opportunity? So I took the trip. I think it was like about 20 students from here. And so we went over there, and we talked to recruiters there, we talked to employees, they discussed their experiences, they talked about Morgan Stanley and the culture. And so once that was all over, I was really satisfied with, that experience. And then at the end, they were like, oh, and by the way, the deadline for this is tonight. So I was like, okay, well, I just went through this. I went to this trip. I really liked it. What am I going to do now? So on the bus ride back, I'm like, you know what? I need to apply and take this opportunity. So I immediately went home, checked up on my resume, made some edits, and immediately did the application process. For that, you have to, answer some questions, and you also have to do what's called a hire review interview. Which is where it's kind of like a video interview where you have to record answers and stuff.
Yeah, I know that was a thing.
Yeah.
Did that feel weird?
It feels kind of weird if you're not used to it, or if you haven't done it before. But, it's a unique experience, that's for sure.
Okay.
And so once that was all set in, that was pretty much it. And then I waited, my answer in terms of, next steps, but that's how I first initially got started on it.
And so you said that you're a political science major, right?
Yeah.
So like how then, of course, that Morgan Stanley, you don't think political science. How are you, do you feel like that your degree in political science is going to, or helped you in your work that you did in your internship?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay. I think, so for political science, you do a lot of research. You're looking at news and, regulations and stuff like that. And that directly applies to Morgan Stanley. Because the banking industry is, very heavily regulated. There's so many different bodies and institutions that control what's going on. So, you have Congress, but beyond that, you have, the SEC, Securities Exchange Commission, you have FINRA. And so in terms of regulations and risk and compliance, all of those things come together, right? And beyond that, in terms of Morgan Stanley, you do have to do research, right? It might not necessarily be the research you do in political science, right? You might not be looking at what Vladimir Putin is doing, for example, right? But at Morgan Stanley, you're researching numbers, making sense of, why you're getting certain numbers and where they're coming from and the reasoning behind it. So in that sense, it does relate.
And so I read the article that you both were featured in, so I kind of have the cheat code a little bit. But I know that this internship that you've had most recently has some future implications for you. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I went through the summer analyst program, and I was graciously extended an offer, a full-time offer. And so post graduation, I'll be joining Morgan Stanley as a full-time analyst.
That is awesome. That is
Yeah.
awesome. I want to like clap my hands, but I don't know how that's going to sound on the podcast, but that's an awesome thing. Okay. So I got some couple of questions. I want to have you both answer for our pod viewers. So tell me, like, what transferable skills do you think that you developed while you were at this internship? And are they kind of things that you think or feel or believe that will align with your future career goals? So, like, what are some things that you picked up and acquired from being a creative person in a science world, right, at applied physics lab? Like, what are some of the transferable skills or some of the things that you picked up that you think you'll take with you?
Okay, so for me personally, the biggest one would be communication. Funny, communications department, but with communications, it for me as a graphic designer, when I was working with like other fellow graphic designers in the field, we almost had like a sort of like over-encompassing role for all the little things you need to do to make a project from the idea to the execution like run. So we'd talk to the person of contact. We have a print shop inside of our building. So we would directly communicate with our print shop people, make sure everything looks good. And like also we have a sort of overarching branding person who looks over our stuff to make sure it's cohesive with our brand. So as a graphic designer, we're pinging all of these people back and forth, along with making sure that we meet a deadline. So with that was one of those multitasking skills that I've never had before. And I had a previous graphic design role where I would just show my project to my supervisor, and he would just say, "Cool, I'll send this to print." That was it. So with me sort of handling all of this, I feel like that was a really important skill to learn.
And like a growth moment. And you know what? While you were talking, it helped me to see your internship was unconventional in its placement. Like, you wouldn't necessarily think about graphic design in the world of science and how those two worlds merge together. Yours is a little bit different though. And so I'd like to hear from you, like, about transferable skills, maybe ones that you brought in, and then maybe some things that you acquired while you were there, because yours not only is in an unconventional place, but also the body of work that you're doing. Like, you were doing graphic design work, but in a science world. You are a political scientist now stepping into a whole new realm.
Right.
So, like, what are maybe some of the skills that you had that benefited you in that environment? And then what are some of the skills that you acquired that you're like, oh, this, like, I want to take this with me forever? I know that's a big question, but
So I think a big thing was in terms of like the technical side, you know, as a political science major, at least from my experience, I haven't really used like Microsoft Excel and stuff.
Okay.
Right. And in the finance world, that's a huge thing, right?
Yeah.
And so going there, I was like a rookie almost, you know, using Microsoft Excel and
Right.
but I really learned how to utilize that, you know, how to create, you know, certain charts and certain, you know, just different ways of like manipulating numbers in order to get certain places and apply it to different projects and stuff.
Okay.
And so in that sense, that was one thing. Another thing too is we had an automation project throughout the summer, which had us utilizing like different automation tools. And so being familiar with those tools, learning how to pull different data sets and then turning them into visuals was one thing that I learned. So on the technical side, those are some technical things. I also learned how to like collaborate because, you know, our automation project, it was a group project. And so, you know, addition to our like daily tasks that we were doing within our teams, we also had to coordinate how to work with our groups, right? Because they have their own tasks. So we have to say, all right, are we meeting today or tomorrow to complete this portion of the project, right? And so collaborating with all those different members, trying to figure out what my strengths are, what my weaknesses are, and the same for the others, so that, you know, we have a good group and we're ready to complete this project. So in that sense, I think collaboration, getting more technical with different finance applications, those are some skills that I definitely learned.
Did you feel at all, or do you feel at all, like, as you getting ready to transition into full-time work there, in any ways, like a fish out of water, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm not a finance person, maybe like some of their, I don't know, language or if their calculations or whatever. I know you said Excel, but like other ways.
Mm.
Do you feel kind of like, nervous or reluctant, or do you feel like really prepared?
I feel prepared only because, so my manager actually, she wasn't a finance major either. So I'm a
Wow.
political science major, and she actually had gone to UMD, and she was a government major.
Okay.
And so that there gave me confidence.
Okay.
And Morgan Stanley as a whole, they're very accepting of like all types of majors.
Okay.
Like, it can be literally anything. Like, I've seen theater majors there. I've seen, quantitative economics and, all types of different majors. And so I feel like as long as you're willing to learn and implement yourself, you'll do just fine. And I think initially you want to learn a little bit about finance, right? Understand how the business works.
Yeah.
But beyond that, they'll teach you a lot of things as long as you're willing to learn and you're willing to push yourself so that you can learn those things. So I'm not too worried.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. Confidence. I like that. So I got a question for you, Kayla.
Yep.
Being in at Johns Hopkins at the Applied Physics Lab, doing your work this summer, how did your internship either change or reinforce your understanding of like what your career path could be? How did your internship either change or reinforce your understanding of like what your career path could be?
It definitely, I would say, I think it did a little bit of both.
A little bit of both,
because
okay.
especially at the lab, it was really cool seeing that although like we are graphic designers, we can do so much stuff, and you can also sort of move your career almost like in different creative fields. I've seen like a couple graduates from UMBC, even from like my program graphic design, working in web design and motion graphics.
Okay.
And we do take some classes in that, which I'm thankful for that UMBC does that. But it was really cool seeing that, like, even though I can do print and digital, I can also do animations. I can do like interfaces and stuff, and I'm still, part of like technically the graphic design creative realm. And I don't know, it was really cool seeing that, like, even though I'm in this degree, I can change it however I want, get the training for it, and I'm still on pace and on par with everyone else.
This is like maybe just me being curious, but like working in that environment, what kinds of like publications or what kind of art or outputs, what were you creating? What were you making?
It was pretty much almost everything, because since we have, and this really great benefit, because we have such really nice printing machines, we could do all types of stuff, like any sort of course, digital applications, animations with, what is it, those like upgraded Apple Mac laptops and desktops. But for graphic design, we were able to do posters, enamel pins, t-shirt designs, all sorts of like displays, wall displays, digital displays, just if anything and everything you can think for an event that you'd want your logo on, we could do that. And and we also had a couple of 3D printers too, which I was very moved by, because even though now I know UMBC has now implemented 3D printing in our library this year, same within our print shop Common Vision. Before that, I've never had any experience with 3D printing, and I was able to take advantage of that this summer.
That's cool. So then the graphic design department over there, the communications department over there was more so in the like branding. Because me being a novice, I'm thinking like, what are you doing? Are you like taking pictures and images of like red blood cells or whatever they're doing over there in the physics lab and making art out of like science? So it wasn't that. It wasn't like you were creating imagery for like the scientists. You didn't become like a scientist while you were there. This was more of a branding
Yeah,
thing.
because I was more on the branding side, but I know others in the department are able to do more illustrative work for if the scientists might need a 3D rendering of something or an illustration of a process or even an infographic. Those are the more complex projects. But for me, I mainly did some of the more like branding projects, maybe like PowerPoint slide decks, stuff, Word documents, posters, t-shirt stuff. like good stuff around the lab that can be easily done in a summer versus like a 3D rendering or sort of like an illustrative package for like a booklet.
Okay, I got a different question for you, Anil. So tell me, do you have any like examples that you can share of like projects or things that you did throughout the course of your internship that had like a significant impact on your professional growth? Like, oh my goodness, like because of this work, I'm now like not a subject matter expert, but like I've grown in this way particular. Like, was there anything that was really like remarkable, things that just like left a print on you forever that you did?
Yeah, so as I mentioned previously, we did work on an automation project, right? I don't know how much I could speak on it due to, privacy reasons, but basically...
I know when you're doing this top secret work,
yeah,
I understand.
Yeah, so basically we had to pull some metrics, right, from a certain department. And this process would take the people who are doing this, a couple hours, a day to do. And so our job was to automate it. And so we could significantly reduce the manual time it takes to actually complete it, right?
Okay.
And so we utilized some tools to do this.
Okay.
But these are tools that a lot of like myself and the group members, we've never used before, right?
Okay.
So they're like, all right, this is day one. This has to be done near close to the end of the internship. So it's a 3-month internship, right? So we had pretty much the whole summer to get this done, right?
Wow.
And so the initial period of this project was simply learning how do we tackle this, right? Because we don't know these applications. We never used them.
Yeah.
So it's learning how to utilize those applications, right? And we had to do a lot of different things for it. So we had to do our own trainings. But like Morgan Stanley gave us full freedom in how we want to complete this project, right? So we were like, you know what? Let's figure out who in this organization knows how to utilize these applications, and let's seek some wisdom from them.
Okay.
So that's what we did. We looked for people who knew these applications, got their advice on how to tackle the problem, and if they had any similar projects, can we take a look at it and see how it runs? And so the whole summer consisted of us meeting with different stakeholders, going to different events, and then learning ourselves how to, tackle this issue and, figure out how we can automate this process.
Wow.
And it also required, time management, right? Figuring out when can team members meet at what times and how to delegate certain parts of the project to different members, right? And so all in all, we learned how to, learn something new.
Yeah.
Learn how to manage our time, learn how to communicate, and learn that you can't do things alone, right? It takes everyone to get some of these, problems solved. And it also takes different mindsets, right? Because in my group, I was the only political science major. We had a business major. We had a person who moved from fashion into business.
Wow.
And so it's all these different backgrounds that comes together to provide different perspectives, right? That's how we're able to complete this project. So that project left a huge impact on me, and the importance of having, a good leader. And when the leader can't be there for whatever reason, how to step up and ensure that everything is taken care of. So yeah.
So like your intern colleagues, were they from a variety of different universities and colleges?
Yeah, so I mean, we had some from Maryland. We had like some that go to Towson and Loyola, and we had people that came from New York and Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And so I mean, the whole intern class was pretty diverse.
Wow.
We had people from Texas, Florida.
Oh wow.
But so all types of different universities, all types of different majors.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is so awesome. Y'all have personally inspired me, and on and off camera, and I think that y'all are going to do the same for other folks. So thanks for hanging with us this afternoon, and we really appreciate you. Thanks for hanging with us on the pod.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's nice meeting y'all. All right, we did it.